Captain Midnight.
In November of 2021, The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon released a segment that haunts me to this day. It was titled Fred Armisen Impersonates Each Decade of Punk Music, and it features Fallon's former SNL co-star playing a few riffs on a guitar. And I'll be upfront with you, it's pretty goofy and maybe even a little petty to be thinking about this years later. But to me, this clip represents, in a very condensed form, basically everything I can't stand about Fallon's style and his Tonight Show. And I've had a lot of time, really too much time, to think about that style. See, the first year Fallon took over the show, 2014, I was working at a very small local TV station, and part of my job was to watch The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon very, very closely. We had local TV spots to play, and it was my job to make sure the right buttons were pushed at the exact right times, and that those ads played without any issues. And I actually enjoyed that job quite a bit, but I never warmed up to the new Tonight Show. Some of those segments were downright painful to sit through, something that, at the time, I mostly chalked up to Fallon's inexperience. Well, I don't anymore. Now, the clip I want to focus on today didn't need to be one of those painful segments. Fred Armisen comes in with a decent pre-scripted musical bit. He's been doing this kind of thing on talk shows for years. It's really Fallon here that makes this a tough sit. Something that's echoed over and over again in the comments of this video, with people comparing him to Michael Scott. So let's take a look. So after being reintroduced, Armisen explains the premise of what he's about to do. He's going to give us some examples of strumming styles in punk and alternative music from the 70s to the 2000s. Okay, great. Now the way I see it, if you're Fallon, you have 3 real options for how you can conduct yourself here. Let's just list them from the easiest to the most difficult, shall we? Option 1. You can do nothing. This is an attractive option. Armisen is an old pro, he's doing all the heavy lifting in this segment, and he knows a lot more about this music, so just sit back and let Fred do his thing. Perfectly valid. Option 2. You could provide a little more background and table setting for each guitar riff, something that could really help viewers at home. See, Armisen does a good job on the guitar, but he tends to just name a lot of bands and uncontextualize details, and assumes that you know what he's talking about. He'll say things like,
Sleater-Kinney would be like more single notes.
And I'm sure, in Fred Armisen's world, Sleater-Kinney is incredibly well known. I mean, he co-created his show Portlandia with the band's lead singer. Clearly to him, no farther explanation is really required. But Jimmy, you're the host of The Tonight Show. This is supposed to be the most broadly appealing American late-night show on the air. Maybe help viewers out in understanding what that meant, who the band appealed to, what their scene was, or even just mention the Portlandia connection. Something to really give viewers who don't know this fairly niche band a way in. It's not totally necessary, and maybe it wouldn't even work if Fallon doesn't actually know anything about these bands, but if done well, it would have made this segment better understood to more people. Then we get to option 3, and what an option it is. Really the holy grail of options. Jimmy could join in on the fun. Building on the improv parody lyrics that Armisen comes up with, they could toss them back and forth in a goofy, nostalgic tribute to this style of music. If done well, this would easily be the best choice, as it fits perfectly in line with the kind of hanging out at a fun but PG-rated party with celebs atmosphere that this incarnation of The Tonight Show is just obsessed with cultivating. So, to Jimmy's credit, I guess, he opts for option 3. But not yet. First, he's just gonna soak it in. And Armisen plays a little riff that's supposed to sound like the band Velvet Underground.
Going down the boulevard with the flower.
I mean, wow, Jimmy is losing his shit over this. He has to turn away from the camera. He is just cracking up so much. I mean, this guy must absolutely love early 70s Lou Reed a ton and finds this impression just dead on. Either that or he thinks the word boulevard is really funny.
Boulevard.
I'm guessing it's that one. Fallon is still trying to compose himself as Armisen explains that his next riff is kind of like the Ramones. This becomes the first, but certainly not last time that Jimmy jumps in to provide some vocals. And I think it's fine. Sounds like a Ramones song. Jimmy gets in, provides some backing vocals. Okay. But then Jimmy is so hung up on how incredibly funny the last song was that he's just not over it.
Going down the boulevard with a flower.
Fred seems a little confused why he liked it so much, but he's a pro, so he rolls with it. Now, there's a moment here where Jimmy actually tries to really improvise some additional lyrics.
Don't go to the ambulance. Don't go to the ambulance. Don't go to the ambulance. Don't run on. Yeah.
And I don't know if he just felt super awkward after getting cut off abruptly like this, but from this point on, he just seems to parrot everything Fred says back at him, even more than he already was. Like in the next riff, where Armisen throws out,
I am a neon light.
And again, Jimmy just loves this. He does not want it to end. You can see him look up at the ceiling for a second and really consider his next move. Fred may have finished that song off, but Jimmy clearly thinks there's still more life left in it. So, take it away, man.
I am a neon light. I am a neon light. Yeah, it's great.
So you had him play that again, and then you just said what he said, but twice. That's followed by more of Fallon mirroring what Armisen is doing exactly, like the alien at the end of Annihilation. During Fred's Sonic Youth riff, we see Fallon say yeah over and over again, as he seems to rev up to sing. He even starts miming a microphone. Alright, here it comes! Oh, no, he's bailing on it. He's bailing on it. And he just says, yeah, a bunch more times. But he goes on to say that he remembers this kind of song. So, hey, there's our actual first confirmation in this clip that Jimmy has any thoughts or feelings on music. So, that's something. A quick Google search for Jimmy Fallon music taste reveals that Jimmy Fallon's favorite song of 2022 was As It Was by Harry Styles. Sadly for Fred here, that song did not exist yet. Anyway, Armisen does a little ska, and for a second, it really looks like Jimmy is gonna jump in and do the next line.
Yep.
Your mom and dad were the best you ever had.
Yeah.
Again, it just kind of fizzles out, and then he sort of says nonsense. Now don't get me wrong, I don't think coming up with a good line on a spot like this would be easy. I certainly would not be good at it. But I'm not the host of The Tonight Show. And also, just to remind you, he does not have to jump in with every song. I don't know why he feels compelled to keep doing this. Just let Fred play the riffs, man. But to give Armisen a hard time for a minute, it should be noted that the song he plays after this, the one he describes as Pacific Northwest kind of halftime, is not some generalized genre riff like he's been doing. Yeah, this is just way too close to being the Collective Soul song Shine. But whatever, this isn't really about Fred. Now we get two more guitar riffs, both of which Jimmy jumps in on as well, adding absolutely nothing except Fred's exact words and some mumbling. And then, finally, thankfully, Jimmy reminds us to watch the show Armisen is there to promote and kicks it to a commercial. Thus ends a segment of two guys awkwardly bonding over music where it isn't actually clear if one of them has heard an alternative or punk song from the 20th century. It's rough. I think it's a rough watch. Is it the most terrible Jimmy Fallon segment ever? No, but it is worse than the norm. The comments definitely believe that Jimmy is dragging this whole thing down. I understand that I'm being a little over the top here. Every talk show has bad segments. But I didn't pick this segment because I thought it was the absolute worst of anything. I picked it because I think it's the most emblematic of The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon failing on its own terms. See, this is a show that's supposed to thrive on these kinds of low-stakes, fun interviews and segments. A common narrative around Fallon's tenure on the show is that his first few years were good, or at least popular, and then the world took a darker turn, and Fallon, as shown in his infamous interview playing with Trump's hair, was not good at adjusting to the more serious and political tone that these shows took on in the back half of the 2010s. It's a case that's easy to make, as we saw Colbert slowly but surely outpace him in viewership in that time, even as the overall viewership for these shows just continues to kind of fade out. But I actually think the answer might be a little more complex than that. There was a demand for more light and playful late-night talk shows. The early success proved that. Jimmy Fallon just wasn't good at it, and I don't think he ever got much better. There have been viral clips and segments from this show. Hell, Lip Sync Battle was so well liked that it spun off into its own show. And I think that's very telling. It's the Tonight Show segment where the celeb interacts with Fallon really the least. People liked Paul Rudd or Tom Cruise doing a goofy lip sync, and it basically had nothing to do with Jimmy Fallon himself. That exact same thing could have been the case with this segment. Like if Fred Armisen had just uploaded his own version of this on social media, it probably would have gone over better than this did. And that's what I find most interesting about The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. I think there's plenty of people out there that find this kind of fun, low stakes, hanging out with celebs vibe appealing, but even now, after all these years, I'm not convinced that anyone is really sure why Jimmy Fallon, of all people, needs to be at the center of it. Honestly, the fact that his sense of humor isn't really for me isn't that important. I don't find Jay Leno very funny, but I would never call him a bad talk show host. He was totally in command and locked in for most of his interviews. Johnny Carson was a legend, but it's not like I'm howling with laughter watching his segments these days. What's appealing was his laid-back interview style, the way he makes viewers feel like they're hearing Joan Rivers or Sammy Davis Jr. unwind over a couple drinks. They both had their own interview styles that they seemed completely at ease with. Fallon, over 10 years in, has just never felt that way to me. He's skittish, uncomfortable, over-laughing at every single thing. Why this is the guy that NBC has entrusted their flagship late-night talk show to for so long, I will just never fully understand. And look, I understand that this style of late-night show is a dated format. I totally get that. But hosts like Jimmy Fallon, I think they're taking it to its grave even faster than it would have got there otherwise. Which, at least to me, as a TV history nerd, is kind of depressing. You know, at least we'll never run out of weird old 70s Tonight Show clips to watch.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.